I'm gonna bring the agenda up.
Okay.
Can you all see it?
A little bit more.
Bigger? Oh,
Please.
okay,
There we go.
okay.
Okay, we have.
We have our update
So
for
we
the
have to do a
holistic.
reporting out, I believe. Let's scroll down a little bit more.
Yeah, actually, our chancellor, I'm gonna check the chat. I'm going to share the document for us.
Okay.
Hold on one second. All right, here we are.
So just before we do the breakout session, because the weather is getting worse and I may not be able to log back on, but I know you guys have the breakouts, and I just wanted to get my last item out there, which was
I'm sorry.
holistic budget, safety and budget. I'm sorry, I'm thinking budget. The Holistic Safety and Wellness Committee. PGC approved this structure last year. And so now it was so late in the year that some of the committees asked that we bring it back for the fall semester. So here we are. And we need to get recommendations from the different appointing agencies so that we can convene our first meeting. So I am asking for you to review this. I think the CWG, which I reported on earlier, did a great job on this. It took us a while to get it completed, but we got it done. And there have been inquiries to me asking, I'm interested in being on this committee. What do I do? And I referred them to the appointing agencies, which are the colleges. And then there is also an appointment at the district office. So that's really all there is. Once we get those names, and if there's more than one, then I'll just make recommendations or confer with the appointing bodies to see which one they prefer if there's more than one. And then we'll move forward with this. We're coming up on a year that Director Thomas has been here. He came in on board in in November. So we really do need to get this committee up and working. There's a lot of things that he needs help with and guidance on, and inclusion in our participatory governance portion. So any questions about that?
Do we know which groups have not submitted?
I haven't gotten anything, Donald.
Oh,
So
anything. Oh,
I have
okay.
gotten nothing. I've got individuals that have contacted me asking,
But
you
not
know,
from the
I'd like
group.
to be on it, but no validation, no recommendations from the bodies indicated. So for example, the campus safety committees, nobody has given me anything. The constituency bargaining units haven't given me names. Everything is vacant except for Director Thomas.
Okay, if we can get within the next week, please, constituency groups, whether it's classified Senate or our unions, Local 39, SEIU, and PFT, if we could please let the Chancellor's office know, that would be most appreciative, as well as the other at-large members, because ideally, if we could get this group constituted and have their first meeting, at least by the beginning of November, that would be wonderful.
Donald, I see that Richard has his hand up.
Thank you, Richard.
Yeah, I don't know if a formal announcement has gone out, but I think that would help if either a tailored announcement goes out to each one of these groups, you know, just so there's adequate communication and there's a better collaboration as to, you know, who or how the appointments are made through which groups. I think that would help.
Okay, so Richard, are you looking for just a email going to like yourselves and indicating that nominations or recommendations are now open? Can you please submit by X date, that type of thing?
Yeah, my concern are the larger groups, like the college health and safety chairs, like those appointments.
Mhm.
You know, because those are larger committees, and I think they would need to determine amongst themselves. That would also help us determine how we would appoint. You know, so I think the larger groups are more of my concern, or the students, and you know, whoever's not currently in this meeting, because you know, sometimes people misinformation, and you know, maybe SEIU is not in one meeting, or 39 or whomever, and we want to just make sure that you know it's communicated.
I agree with you, Richard, but one of the things that we agreed to when we created the CWG is, since we had representatives from all of those areas, that it wouldn't just be the chancellor's office sending out notifications. And you were on the CWG, as a matter of fact. All three bargaining units are on the CWG, as well as the presidents. And we do have student representatives from each of the colleges. I showed you that committee structure at the beginning. It's under agenda item number 1. So please, when we make these decisions, take it back out. And I'm more than happy to send out an announcement, but it shouldn't just be one source of communication.
No, I completely agree, but I think to the point is, like, there's no committee appointments, you know, for now, or as is. I can make my appointment right now, you know, but, or we can make our appointment now, but that's, you know, that's not my point.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much. Anything else on this? Okay.
No.
Okay, let's, are we at the reporting out stage right now?
Yes.
Okay, can we get the facilities committee or the technology committee to report out, please? I saw that the vice chancellor had to step out because of I am assuming that there was a leak somewhere, is what she indicated. And so I don't know if that group is ready to report, or should we move to?
President Moore, I think the DTC is standing by and ready to go until the leak is patched.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Matthew. Why don't you guys report first, and then we'll have them.
Very good. I'm going to share my screen and put up a document prepared by the great Violeta de Leon. This has, I hope I'm sharing the correct screen. This is DTC updates, including the goals from last academic year, and then our accomplishments just below that. I think Antoine is here too to help fill out any detail that I will inevitably pass over in presenting this document. So our goals for last year: putting together the incident response team. That was the security team for cybersecurity issues, and that was goal 1. Goal 2, the matrix, the prioritization of the technology master plan. We have a technology master plan. This was to update the matrix. That's sort of a way to assess the various sub goals set out in the master plan for technology. Goal 3, the college and district responsibilities delineation review. And 4, of course, the PeopleSoft update phase 2. So those are the goals for the committee for last year. And as you can see, here are the accomplishments. And happily in that right-hand column, you see 5 straight completeds. The college and district responsibilities delineation review, the incident response team, which some of you were involved in, I know, the PeopleSoft update phase 2 and training, the network infrastructure, and then finally the tri-chair proposal. And actually, we have not, we've accepted the proposal, but we have not yet designated a tri-chair. And part of the reason we haven't is that we need some guidance from the PGC, and I suppose this body that's convening to look at developments to the PBIM to figure out how that will move forward. So I know that I, as co-chair of the DTC was appointed by the DAS president. I'm assuming that the classified professional who assumes the third leg of the stool in the tri-chair will be appointed by the classified president, but we should get some clarity on that. And also it'd be useful during the course of today's discussion to understand how those three chairs will work together. Antoine, what did I overlook here?
I think you covered it very well. I think out of our 4 goals, only the metrics was not completed. So we are carrying over that goal to this year because we are working with the colleges to submit their goal. And last year, so far, only Merritt College submitted the goal. So we are going back and pushing all other colleges to submit their goals so we can have a unified plan moving forward. So thank you, Matt.
Thank you, Antoine.
Yeah, and Antoine, I know the security issue is paramount within the California community college systems. And in terms of a plan for all of us to have the 2-step process, you guys are working on a plan for that?
Yes, we have a plan, and when I went to the desk last time, the District Academic Senate, they conveyed that they wanted to do a little pilot group. So I'm working with Inga to have that set up next week or the next 2 weeks, in the next 2 weeks when you guys meet again. So we can do that with the faculty to see how easy it is from them, what type of support they need wrap around to support them to get the goal done. But yes, we already have it for all the admin people with high level of security, access to security, that those people already implemented. We also have it for the district office people. A lot of people at the district office already have it in place. So we are rolling it out little bit by little bit because we want to be able to support the fluctuation people of having questions or having challenges to do it. But so far, everything is going well. So.
Okay, thank you very much. All right.
Just
Yeah, please.
a question. I would ask that after you review it with the committee, you also apprise them of what's happening at the state level in terms of the matrix that we had to complete and what is happening on that too, for not this, but in a future meeting. I just wanted to be.
Yes, yes, Chancellor. And that's a great point because the state right now is allocating $100 million for cybersecurity for all the California Community College. Out of that, there's an assessment that just got completed, and thanks to the Chancellor working with her, and we were able to submit ours on time. And out of that, we're supposed to receive $200,000 for security initiative for the district. And also the state already purchased Microsoft license A5 to strengthen off our emails and all that stuff to reduce the all the issue we're having around spam and all that stuff. So those are in place and it's rolling out right now. And we'll update the DTC, we'll update all the groups, but there will be changes the way we do business, and we will be communicating those. Thank you, Chancellor, for bringing that up.
Yeah, and then I is because what I mean, just reporting out, it would be, given that we have this money coming in, given what, you know, our limitations, recommendations come from the DTE, that is wishes money based upon input from the ground level. So it isn't a challenge that, well, the district needs to do well. So that's the way I explained it earlier. That is how we should be working as a plan.
Chancellor, you're breaking up. I think we're only catching every other word. Oh,
Yeah, we
I think we lost you all together.
Yeah, we might have lost her altogether. but I think Antoine, getting the information out and about, you know, doing the ground up, as I think we heard the chancellor said, is going to be important in this regard. For people who aren't aware, there's been a number of districts, major districts in and outside of California Community College that have been hacked, and it's become a major issue, and one that I know this incident team has been really on top of. And I think the additional monies that are coming and the new tools that we are going to be using are going to be helpful, but making sure that those things are being communicated to the governance committees as well as the colleges will be very helpful. So thank you very much, Antoine.
Thank you.
Okay, can we move to the facilities committee?
So this is Rachel. I had a family matter come up and I'm going to need to leave. I actually did save our DFC report out information in the Teams folder, and I'd also let Etheria know. I'm not sure if she's back.
She had a step out.
I'm stepping in and out. Like I said, I have a leak going on. I'm in between. If you can go ahead and share, Rachel, I can go over.
Okay, I sent it to you. I emailed it to you. And I also put it in the group. Sorry, I've got a.
No problem.
I can try and spin through this real quickly.
Okay.
Sorry, folks.
Okay.
So am I sharing the right screen?
Yes.
I can't see. Okay, I don't have the green bounding box anywhere, so I couldn't tell. Okay, so our goals for 2021-22, goal 1 was to understand the process for inputting the 5-year construction plans and 5-year capital outlay updates for each college. And we felt that the group that met today felt that goal was met. We had lots of reports out from Bobby Cashal and Sharon Serrano. You know, the presidents were no longer needing to provide the narrative for the 5-year capital outlay plan. The campuses were still providing input, but the timeline and processes were being managed by DGS. And there were lots of presentations as well to the campus facilities committees by those same bodies. So DGS facilitated that to make sure that we were keeping that communication open with our campuses. Goal number 2, as it was stated for last year, was continue to implement TCO guidelines. TCO was always, total cost of ownership was always in part of the conversation. But we were talking today about the fact that it doesn't seem like our committee as a body doesn't really have the charge to implement. So we were looking at changing that to review and update the TCO guidelines as we're looking at it for 2022-23. Goal 3 that we had was maintain shared governance and communication. And we really made great strides to meet as scheduled and to really improve our communications as a committee, sending out meeting announcements, getting the agendas and minutes disseminated in a timely manner so that things could be discussed and our time could be used well. So the group that met today felt that that was met. Oh my goodness, there we go. Shoot.
Rachel, I can take it from here if you like.
Okay, that'd be great. I do apologize.
No
And you
problem.
have the document in front of you?
Hold on. Yes, I did download the document.
Okay, I do apologize, and I will, once I'm able to get my stuff handled, I'll try to jump on from home.
Okay. Oh my. Okay.
Hi,
Okay.
Mrs. Smith. I don't know if I heard her correctly, but she said she put it in the chat, but I'm not seeing it. If you
Let's see. She also sent it to me, and I downloaded. I'm sorry, I'm having an emergency here too. Here, I
You
think
send
I
it to
got
me, I could put it in the Teams folder.
yeah, that's what I was gonna.
That's helpful.
There you go. Can you all see?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Let's see. I think she left off at goal 3.
She was on to goal 4.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. recommend that bond funds provide 1.5% to use for upgrades and improvements. And what we discussed was addressing infrastructure, making repairs district-wide, and allow bond spending on the bond spending plan. In the past, some of you may or may not have been aware that we were asking for the general fund to have 1.5% to make repairs for our maintenance and operations, but we were able to utilize the bond spending plan and to do infrastructure projects district-wide. So we were able to do that. Bond spending plan has been adjusted to meet critical needs of all district facilities. The group felt that this goal was met. Meeting highlights. We discussed the tri-chair discussion. Voting and implementation will occur in our next November meeting. So we will come back, and I have to say, I want to thank Rachel, and I want to give a great thanks to Annie. Well, for the past year and a half, they have really kept it online and kept the meeting minutes and met and been very consistent with this group. So I really, really want to thank Rachel and Annie. Unfortunately, Rachel is looking to step down because of other commitments. So for our tri-chair, we are looking for both the faculty, and we're looking for the other the classified participation also. A very good participation between, like I said, I have a little bit of something going on here. We had very good participation throughout the year for 2021 year. Full membership attended the first meeting. Let's see. And we also had regular presentations from AECOM and Alma Strategies. Regular participation in presentations for the bond spending. And also we're looking to switch over to board docs. So, and that was it for us.
All right, thank you very much. Hope the leak gets done.
Yeah,
thank
me
you very
too.
Much.
Sorry, I'm still on listening, but
okay, if you could get rid of the screen. Yep. Oh, there we go. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. And again, thank you, Annie and Rachel.
Okay, thank you. Can we turn to PBC, please?
Sure, I'll go ahead. Let me flip it over here. So for PBC, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. We actually focused more on goal setting for the next year, but it is worthwhile to review what our goals were from last year. So these were the 2021-22 goals for PBC. One is assessment of the BAM task force. So in terms of assessment, I don't know if we assessed it as such, but the budget allocation model task force did complete the revenue allocation side of the new resource allocation model. And so we've kind of passed that along. We kind of passed it back to CM and the Chancellor's Cabinet in terms of developing the expenditure side of the resource allocation model. So we didn't do the assessment, but I think the BAM task force did do what it was set out to do, what it was constructed to do. Preparing the budget in regards to the FTEF, I'm not actually sure what this goal means as such. So this has to be indeterminate. Preparing the tentative and adopted budgets according to budget development calendar, and continue to review the budget development calendar and adhere to deadline set. There was a wrench thrown in on points 3 and 4 because of the kind of late input from the state governor's office, and then also the the miscalculation of the total computational revenue for projected future general fund balances. So we were late with this, and in fact, we had tried to have the PBC actually met on September 2nd. It met the first Friday of September to receive a report on the very latest version of the tentative / adopted budget. And we had tried to have a second meeting during September to actually vote on an approval of that. And that never happened just because of all the stuff that was going on with, with the budget and scheduling this meeting and so on and so forth. And then look into a way to address low enrollment and increase FTF. This, I think, is incorporated into our 22-23 goals, proposed goals. So that's where we were for PBC goals from last year. And I just want to show what we talked about and so these are the goals that we've come up with that we will propose to the committee in full. Goal one is to develop a robust budget allocation structure and process that aligns with the resource allocation model and supports accountability, innovation, and collaboration between the colleges and district level resource management. So I think if I go back here, these goals in particular, number 2 and number 5, I think are kind of subsumed into this new goal 1. Goal 2 is to explore the possibility of developing additional revenue streams. Goal 3 is to ensure that the use of bond proceeds and parcel tax revenues comply with stipulated restrictions and requirements. Goal 4 is to ensure that resource allocation align with strategic institutional priorities and goals. And then goal 5 is to review and monitor quarterly financial reports. Let's see, there was a question. Well, it could.
Are you referring to my question?
Yes.
Yeah, just wondering why we wouldn't be explicit in PBC about alignment to the CFF metrics, given that that's how apportionment will come to us. So it just seems a little short-sighted to not just name it and not assume that it's embedded behind accountability, innovation.
All right.
But that's just my thought.
Okay, so please attend the PBC meeting because we're going to propose these goals. Like, these aren't set in stone, so the PBC has to approve them, and just renew your
I'm not technically on PBC. I will try to join if I can.
You're not.
I'm making the comment so that those who are PBC members, I would just encourage you to consider naming explicitly the student-centered funding formula metrics as part of the RAM, given that that is how we receive apportionment from the state.
Okay, let me just put that in parentheses here.
Thank you.
Okay. So this is sort of the tentative list of goals for PBC, pending discussion and approval of the committee as a whole. And then in terms of other things that we did, so we did accept the tri-chair proposal, and we elected a classified tri-chair, Kawana Rollins, for last year, and we'll do the same thing for this year. And then, as I had said in the report out on the 21-22 goals, we did complete the revenue allocation side of the resource allocation model. And so now we need the expenditure side to be as fully developed, and then we'll have a complete resource allocation model in place. And I don't know if anybody else from the PBC wanted to add anything to this report out. I'm going to go ahead and stop my share.
Well, Tom,
okay.
Did we discuss the joint meeting?
Oh, right. Well, there's a proposal to have a joint meeting between the PGC and the PBC on October 21st, so 2 weeks from today, so that we can at the very least approve the parcel tax plan that the vice presidents of instruction across the district have developed. And then we need to have this joint meeting because we need to have the participatory governance approval happen before the October 25th board meeting. So we can't do our usual kind of PBC goes first and a week later PGC does their thing, just because of the timing of the second board meeting in October. So that's the proposal, is that we have a joint meeting and then we have this this joint approval of the parcel tax plan be the first item, be the first agenda item on that joint meeting, so that members of the PGC who are not on the PBC, you know, sort of off the hook for the remainder of the PBC meeting. Stephanie.
Thank you so much for that consideration. I, for one, really appreciated trying to get these to the board. Would it, because on the, I think on the 21st, we would have to post the agenda and materials for the Brown Act. Would that cause an issue?
Brown Act would be satisfied if we posted things by 9 a.m. on October 18th.
No, for the board she's talking about.
Oh, for the
For
board.
the board, yeah, because the board meeting is the 25th. I think we have to post it Friday before 5, right?
Yeah.
Technically, no, 72 hours. We just post Friday. We could technically post the meetings on Tuesday. So it would be, I'd say, Saturday, the latest.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yeah, I think as long as there's a place, like the thing, like submit agenda items for the board, that happens way in advance. But as long as there's a placeholder for that, or there's a slot for it.
And I think that if we get the agenda and do everything early enough, because we have 2 weeks, we could have the plan out, and people have questions or anything, could certainly go to the originators of it and try to get those things clarified, so we could vote on it if there's any questions or any comments and stuff, Tom, so that way we could try to address any of those issues or concerns. I doubt if there's going to be many. Just to remind people, this is the second plan that we have for the parcel tax. We did it, I think, 2 or 3 years ago, Cooney. I can't remember when that was done, but it was done previously. And so this is to do the plan for the next duration of this. So
20 to 22, Donald, and then that's why we are going for the 22-24.
yeah, thank you, Cooney. So
and I don't think that it has to be approved. You're not going to have 2 readings, but I think it has to go for feedback. So I don't know if it actually has to be approved by both committees, just that because these have been vetted by the colleges already, and the legislation's very specific. So I think it's just review for feedback.
oh, okay. Well, that makes it.
Someone might want to correct me though.
No, it's informational item only. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, well, then that makes it more convenient.
Okay, noted. It's not an actual action item. Okay, thank you for that clarification. Let's see, I have a question in the chat from Chancellor Jackson. Can it be noted that it is not just an expenditure plan, but a process for implementation, which was discussed by the CWG and sample flow chart? Not just an expenditure plan. Is this specifically in reference to the parcel tax plan?
No, I'm sorry. I'm dropping in and out. So it was on your goals. You had mentioned that we have the revenue plan. We need to have an expenditure plan, but it's more than just an expenditure plan. It's a process by which we get to the revenue allocation model. Just a point of clarification when you put it out as a goal.
Expenditure.
Remember,
Okay, hold on. Let me share my screen.
I heard it.
again.
I heard it, Tom. I don't know if I saw it. I'm just on a voice because of the weather here and bandwidth and stuff.
Okay. Well, okay, it's written as a goal. Whoops. As a goal, it's written as structure and process. So I think hopefully in goal one, the actual wording is more to your liking, even if I may have misstated what the actual goal was.
All right. Thank you. Thank you
Yeah.
very much.
Yep.
Okay. Let's, any other questions or comments? Okay. Let's, thank you very much, Tom. PGC sporadically met. Unfortunately, we didn't do the document as Brandy wanted to do, but we basically were able to discuss doing the joint meeting on the 21st. It's going to be interesting. We need to double check to see if there's any other joint items that we may have, but it might not necessarily have to be a very long meeting. There was a brief discussion on a AP chancellor that was part of the SEIU agreement on remote working that I guess is being done right now, and about when that one will be going before the cabinet and you certainly, but I also assume that it'll be going to PGC as in terms of the governance process. So I don't want you to have to speak some more about that, but I just wanted to let you know that that was part of the discussion that we had at the PGC meeting. We plan on still having the PGC meeting at the end of the last Friday, I think the last Friday of the month, but that's all we're talked about. Any questions or comments?
I only bring this up because it's usually brought up when we talk about workplace conditions, but that is a workplace condition, and that outside of the purview of participatory governance and falls under the purview of collective bargaining.
Ah, good. Yes, I was wondering. Yes. Okay. Thank you, Dr. Jackson. All right. Anything else on these report outs? All right, hearing none, can we move to the next agenda item?
Okay, I'll stop sharing the screen, but it's the PBIM process and manual updates.
Oh,
And
hold
so-
on, hold on. Keep it there for just a second.
Okay.
Andy, because Dr. Jackson, I don't know if you're going to be able to talk in this time period. What's your inclination? I could certainly help, but
I think you lost her.
We lost her again? Okay. I know that the chancellor wanted to ensure that our governance processes are followed and encouraged in terms of participation and transparency and so on. And part of the integrated planning and budget structure that the district has been trying to do, as well as the colleges, as we move forward with this, has been to try to ensure that the the things that are being done, let's take the program review, for example, are being done by not only instructional side, but all the different aspects of the colleges. I am assuming that the chancellor and the vice chancellors are also doing something similar over at the district, at least I hope so. And the question has always been, well, then what happens after the validations that occur? What happens with that information? And part of what her desire was, and I'm sure all of our desires, was to make sure that those informations get also communicated to the district governance processes, so that way we can ensure that we are involved and engaged in that participatory process. And that part of this whole issue is because as we move to this new resource allocation model, or expense and resource allocation model, that we will have, the colleges will have much more independence, and the district offices will continue to try to provide the support to the colleges, but we want to make sure that these governance processes, both at the college and at the district, are viable. And so I really wanted the chancellor to have been able to talk about this a little bit more. And so my apology. Royal, do you have any additional information to
Dr. Joker actually has her hand up.
Oh,
and she would probably be the most appropriate person to speak to it.
Okay, thank you so much.
Well, maybe not, because I want to know what agenda item we're on. Are we on number 5?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So I don't have any additional information, but I do have a question that I'm hoping that can be answered. So let me give you an example. So one of the little bullet points under this is role of PGC versus PBC. And I actually am the one that put that on there. And the reason I did is, for example, DASC, our District Academic Affairs and Student Services Committee, which is kind of going under a change. We are going to be, my group didn't have its majority of members, including my co-chair, so we didn't get very far, but our first meeting will be tackling some of our purpose and goals. So my question is, it's documented that DASC reports to PBC, not PGC. And so that's why I asked the question, because that seems weird to me. So I'm hoping with some background in the room and institutional history, is that the way it's supposed to be? Or is that a leftover of the times when PBC was the top committee and I should just assume we report to PGC?
Correct. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's the way that it was. I like that. Angelica.
Groundhog Day.
Yeah. But yes, before that was definitely provided to the PBC, and I think that the PGC has that role right now. And the chancellor had put into chat some of the issues around how different people are appointed to these bodies. And so, and that is basically done through the senates and the classified ones, and whatever other constituencies that we utilize for those purposes. But it's also obviously through the PGC where those kinds of things are discussed and then done by the individual groups, I guess, if you will. And
I see that both Matthew and Rudy have their hands up, but I just really want to say thanks. And I guess I know we put planning in the planning and budget committee, but it really is a budget committee, right? Am I off topic there?
Yeah, I think that's been the issue and the rub, and definitely the other folks could raise their hand and speak to this. But you have groups like PBC, which is planning and budget, and what the practice has been, or the practice is, however, with PBC, is that it's been primarily a budget planning, right, that has gone on. And the question, I think, is that any of these groups, because I'll reference CIPD as another one, which has a P in it, which is planning, and that group is primarily focused on curriculum. And so part of our problem is that the nomenclature on the actual committees, we really need to assess them and to see what in fact is the meaning associated with it. So if it's planning, is it fiscal planning, or is it something broader than that? And then certainly for any other. So let me bring the hands into this. I believe President Goldstein has his hand up.
Thanks. I'll be channeling JB, Joseph Belinsky here. And this is a point that I've made, I feel, scores of times over the years, but I think the confusion is about the creation of PGC under Chancellor Laguerre several years ago, which took over as the top level chair or participatory governance committee. So a lot of what Stephanie and others are seeing is sort of the residual descriptions of the way the committee structure worked when PBC was the topmost committee. So that's the Belinsky Goldstein point we've made ad nauseum over the years. And I think we're seeing some of the problems that it caused in these sorts of confusions. And just to editorialize, I was hopeful that part of today's agenda would address precisely this issue, and that the summit would involve revisiting the committee structure so we could erase these sorts of confusions. Anyway, thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you very much for bringing that up. I do think that all of our committees need to clearly look at their what they're utilizing, and to ensure that the information that in terms of the definition of what they are, whether it's the planning council, planning committee, governing council, governing committee, or any of the other ones that I mentioned out there, are clarified. Where do you see the role of PGC having discussions around that, or do you see the individual entities having that discussion? Because the other one that obviously Dr. Joker is interested in is DSAC, because DSAC has been minimized over the course of the last few years, with only meeting a very few number of times and really not having much to do with enrollment management. And the chancellor and others have called for a discussion of that, to have a more meaningful role for that committee. But again, we should look at, well, what is DSAC? DSAC was an attempt to update the academic and student services as a means of trying to address it, versus the old name that we had for the district office, which was educational. Ooh, I forgot. Matthew, do you remember it?
No, but I see the chancellor has weighed in the chat about precisely these issues. So again, I guess my hope is only that we clarify these issues. We may have differing views of what should be the top committee and how the various committees should relate to each other, but at least we should get some clarity on how these things work, and then we can have our disagreements about its overall functionality from there. But I think I speak for more than one person when I say there's some confusion about how these pieces fit together and how the reporting structures are supposed to work, et cetera.
Yeah, and one of the ones that Chancellor definitely has participated in, and the presidents have participated in because it became uncomfortable at a certain point, was the fact that if you have as the chair, the primary chair, the reporting person, i.e. the chancellor, who ultimately receives the information, should they be in the role of chair or not? And then that got into, at the college councils, whether or not the college councils or the roundtables, do they have other chairs other than the president, because the information goes to the president, right? And so it provided an interesting issue that ultimately also needs to be addressed in some type of way. And again, I don't know where the forum is, but I think that one of the things that was problematic when the PGC was created was, how do we provide that information to the chancellor in this instance, and he or she would be part of that discussion. So I know that the chancellor has also discussed that point, but I do think that that we need to revisit it and to have it clarified. And I think that PGC is probably a good place that we should have it on the agenda to discuss, because again, when we're looking at, as Dr. Joker is talking about, in terms of the services that are provided in terms of educational, we should look at the nomenclature and really make sure that we have those suited. So Chancellor, I see that you're on here. Do you have any quick comment you would like to make verbally?
If I can, before I get kicked off again, everything you were saying, Matthew, is exactly why I put this out there. I did it in a item that need to discuss, but really kind of a collage of things that we as the PGC, as goals, if I had been able to participate under these.
Yeah, I don't think it.
As a process.
Yeah, Chancellor, I think you're breaking up. So what we could definitely do is in chat, if you want to write anything further, please do. And then what we will do, Matthew and Joseph and anybody else who is interested in this topic, is to have this as a line item, or not a line item, but excuse me, as an agenda item. And we will address it at that time, so we could provide information to, I know CM is working on updating the manual as well. And so we could really be able to address that in some kind of way, so that there's clarity, and that when we look at these names of the various entities, we could be clear about what the name and the associated intent of that committee is. And so Dr. Jackson, I hope that we could have that on the agenda of PGC, and then try to provide information to the rest of the governance committees. And Dr. Droker, if you could speak to just a brief moment about what kind of role are you planning on discussing with the DSAC. I think that would be, I want to apologize because I've neglected to have you guys report during our different governance committee reports. I had completely just forgot about it. So
that's okay, but President Moore, before we go on, I see Rudy and Nathaniel both have their hands up, and I didn't know if they wanted to jump in before I said anything else.
Okay, well, let me see. Dr. Jones or Dr. Berskop, either one of you have any comments on this topic?
I do, but I think Dr. Besakoff was ahead of me.
Okay.
So I guess my comment is more a question. What it sounds like is a holdover, kind of a legacy item. And I know that in the Zoom world, I'm using legacy in ways I never thought I would, but the DASK to PBC when it perhaps should be to PGC if PGC is truly our top committee. Are there other holdover / legacy items that kind of never shifted or transitioned? And I ask this question fully respectful of the question of the other questions that are out there about PGC versus PBC. But I guess what I'm asking is, are there some other committees that are kind of holdovers that maybe never adjusted with the creation of PGC?
No, just DSAC. That issue is still there in terms of the name itself, but it doesn't have that same conflict as PBC and PGC had. Okay. I think that one of the things we have to look more critically at also are we have district-wide committees that aren't part of this governance process, including CIPD, as well as the CE committee and the DE committee and so on. And they could be construed as subcommittees maybe, but again, that gets murky. And then CIPD also used to have a role probably in planning, but for the last 10 years that I'm aware of has been mostly just dealing with curriculum issues. So I think in a way it's broader, but it's not that specific issue, President. Thank you. Dr. Jones.
Yes, thank you, President Moore. I would say that we really do need to be very specific about where the nexus is for planning and budgeting. Standard 3D2 and standard 3D3 specifically indicates that there needs to be processes that involve planning and resource allocation, and that the resource allocation needs to reflect the institutional planning and institutional priorities. So and which is one reason it made perfect sense to me, thinking about it in that way, that planning and budget are inextricably linked. And so having a committee that reflected that made a lot of sense. Now, in practice, are we functioning in that way? Maybe or maybe not. But it's really, really important that we figure it out, because when it comes time to actually producing evidence that show that our resource allocation is being informed by our planning, one would normally go to those committees that have that responsibility, pull the minutes and say, hey, see, here's us having a conversation. We're setting priorities. We're linking that to our budget. But if we aren't clear about which committee has that responsibility, we're not going to have the evidence to support our accreditation and that's of an area that we've had trouble with in the past, and we clearly want to avoid having confusions in those kinds of areas. And so it's really, really important that we do find an appropriate remedy and be really, really clear and intentional how we are going to move forward in this area. So that's my 2 cents.
Thank you. Thank you very much. If we could, Dr. Droker, if we could come back.
Yeah.
All of those are salient points.
Yeah. So actually, I'm really glad I followed Dr. Jones, because this is kind of what we're struggling with, right? So when you look at the goals that DASK had before, it's really focused on resources for services across the district, either academic affairs or student services, or it's a first, on planning or on enrollment. And these are things that actually overlay in the purposes of other committees, right? So we are really struggling with our role. So like when we talk about, well, what services should academic affairs and student services have across the district? Well, there's a planning issue there. There's a policy issue there. There's a budgetary issue there. And we already have committees that do those things. So and you're the one that told me this, Donald, right? The DASK used to be called the Education Committee back in 2013, 2014, or something like that. And they did enrollment management as one of the priorities. So, okay, well, we've been talking about a Dempsey. So does that mean that this committee of DASK becomes primarily enrollment management? But then how do we define it? Because if we're being really focused on FTEF allocation, well, that's a budgetary issue again. So we're really struggling about what issues. Right now we have a distance education and career education committees as subcommittees under DASK, and they're really focused. They know what their purpose is. They know what their goals are. So those things come up, but there's a whole bunch of other teaching and learning happening across the colleges that aren't just DE and CE. And so it makes sense to have a committee focused on teaching and learning inside the classroom, as academic affairs is, and outside the classroom, which are all the other things that support students. But we really need to narrow down what that means. And are we then confusing the issue of who gets what? And so, what kind of issues come to us? So, there is an opportunity to have things like the Title V changes that affect student services and academic affairs come to us that we can help, but there's a PGC relationship with that too. So I don't want to speak for my committee because my co-chair isn't here and a majority of our members weren't here today, but we really need to tackle this. And so our number one goal this year is to define our purpose. We think it's important that this committee stays because we are the only committee that is focused on teaching and learning. And as higher educational institution, we really think that should be part of the decision-making process and the better support our governance process. But we also want to not duplicate anything as well.
Yeah, other people please respond, but part of the reality of it is that when you look at teaching and learning, it cuts across all of these other committees. You talk about facilities, or you talk about IT in terms of DE, any and all of those things. And then obviously on the FTES, FTEF issue, the allocation of resources, i.e. In terms of FTF as an example. I think that in our budget meeting today, a big issue that continues to come up in the budget over the years has been about the costs of utilities, the cost of electricity and so on. And I said, oh, well, don't we need more, what are those called? Solar panels to help reduce the cost. Well, that's not our role, right? But is it a facility role? Is it the college roles to see what they need to utilize? And this was an issue that was brought up by Dr. Jones at that, but they all kind of interconnect in some kind of ways, right?
So, yeah, so maybe I can just close it out with this, and I know we don't have an answer today, but you know, this connection of integrated planning, right? What comes up from the colleges has to go somewhere with the district for decision-making at the toppest level, which is PGC. So what issues are coming from the college to DASC or education committee or whatever you want to call us to help inform those decisions? So the technologies committees at the colleges, well, we know where that goes, right? The facilities committee at the colleges, we know where that goes. What comes to us? So that is our question. How can we contribute in participatory governance and decision making for the betterment of our students? What is our role?
Okay. Thank you. Any questions or comments on this one? Sorry if I'm not,
Donald?
see, yes.
Yeah, I put this in the chat just as a proposal and maybe from this proposal, we end up doing something different, opposite or modified, but it seems to me we've got a lot of institutional memory here. For example, when Matthew Goldstein was speaking, I could just tell from his comment that, you know, he understands a lot about the district governance structure and how historically it's been. We also have a lot, you know, I think all of us to a degree, we all have our own shades of innovation and things we want to do and vision for where we want our colleges and the district to go. Would it make sense for PGC to put this on the agenda, have a work group to kind of look at things and then come back with a draft of, we'll call it adjustments, like if it's, again, going back to the DASC example, that DASC was never adjusted to report to PGC, but to basically come back with like a kind of a list of things that we could do. And I also think that maybe doing that puts it in the kind of 2022 light. And maybe in terms of some of the other discussions about district participatory governance, maybe some of those things might get addressed in either in less direct fashion. But I'm wondering if we could maybe just kind of have a group of many people with many lenses and just let them kind of sift through this and then come back to PGC or to the PBIM and say, let's look at these adjustments and then start to shop it. Plus, and Stephanie was, or excuse me, DC Droker was very astute in saying 10+1. There might be a window here then to take it to some other groups such as the District Academic Senate or others. I'm just putting forward as a possible next step.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's see, anybody else want to address these issues? If not, we could get to closing earlier.
There are two more things.
Drats.
In this agenda item. One is I received responses from most of the committees about the final PBIM agenda. Just still outstanding are dates for our safety committee. And we understand that they are going to come together to determine those. But I just also need to confirm, I believe that there's one more that I need confirmation for. Hold on one second.
Okay.
I'll let you know. Other than that, Chancellor Jackson, while I'm bringing that up, Chancellor Jackson tasked me with creating a framework for a master calendar. That's
okay.
And I want to present to you all just a framework. It's a very rough draft of what that looks like, just to give you an idea of the intent behind it. So let me share screen. You should see this Teams folder. So you should now see a rough draft. Ideally, the month and the year will be at the top of the spreadsheet. And again, this is just the framework. But along the A line, you'll see the board prep deadlines, the board meeting dates, what the board has at their, what they're emphasizing or highlighting that evening during those meeting dates. And then you'll see our Peralta committee's dates there filled in. What I'll reach out to each committee and especially our support staff is to capture what are the additional report outs. So when is it time for the budget review? When is there time for budget adoption? And any outstanding reports that you all are working on collectively, ACC, JC reporting deadlines, bond oversight committee updates and things of that nature. I won't go into too much detail, but what you're looking at here is an idea and a framework for us to translate whatever we combine here perhaps into a calendar, which is more visually appealing or works better, or however that looks like in the end. We just wanted to share with you the idea that we are working on a master calendar for better planning, and all the way up to the board meetings where things have to be approved. So through participatory governance from the campus up to the district to the board meetings.
Yeah, and I know what we're looking for here is each of our committees have a season of stuff that usually they have to do. Whether it's, if you take PBC, for example, they have to adopt the budget development calendar. And that basically pushes forward on the operational side, all of the things that are going to be done. And included in that have been commitments of doing a town hall in May or whatever those things are. And then the facilities just came up to PGC and provided information regarding the 5-year, I think Aetheria's, was it the capital outlay or capital projects? And if that's a common occurrence, and then we of course have ACC, JC common things that occur either heightened towards when we have the visits, and then obviously the educational master plan, and then our own strategic planning, anything from the mission that we now have to the other component parts to that. All of those different kinds of things are typically done in certain timeframes. And so if we could have those, then we could know, and as we get new people on board, they could simply look at this calendar and know what their participation is on particular items as we move along too. And so it's useful for planning purposes, it's useful for the colleges to know, and certainly, for example, when CUNY wanted sent from the VPIs the information about the parcel plan that is being brought forward as an informational item. So anyhow, those are the kinds of things, Brandy, you're talking about for each of the committees to provide. There's always going to be instances where something new is coming in, but at least if we can have some knowledge of what are the typical things at typical times.
Yes, you also have two hands, Donald. You have,
okay, please.
Yeah. Dr. Jones, and we also have Matthew Goldstein.
Dr. Goldstein, go ahead first. Your hand was up ahead of mine, sir.
Thanks, Dr. Jones. Just really quickly, please, everyone, take a look at both on Dr. J's notes in the chat. I would agree. Thank you, Rudy, for the recognition there. But I think the chancellor's work group is already set up to handle these big questions. So I wouldn't want to complicate their efforts. The other thing that I've mentioned before is this. Sorry, Dr. J.
No, go ahead, Matthew. I can't talk. You guys can't hear me, so I'm using the chat as my forum.
Well, we appreciate that. And then the other note was about this, the possibility of a joint visit from the ASCCC and the Community College League. And I've mentioned this I think most recently at a board meeting, but it seems like something we might look into, and the chancellor's work group might be just the body to coordinate the visit. So I'll put this in the chat again, but I would encourage the district and the folks in this body to think about the possibility of having some experts from outside come in and explain to us how participatory governance works in other contexts. The link is now in the chat. Again, it's a joint effort from the ASCCC and the Community College League. So you would have both faculty and management interests, and it would be perhaps an opportunity for us to get some of this straight. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Who else?
It was me, Donald.
Yes.
I mean, I think that this timeline and schedule, I think, can serve two purposes. One, obviously, to document, when things need to be submitted. But I also think it would be really, really helpful if we can use this as a means to determine and to clarify what the flow of, or what the approval process looks like for different kinds of things. So for example, I'll use a simple example. The budget, well, it would actually go from the PGC and then to the PGC and then to the chancellor and then to the board. That's pretty easy and pretty straightforward. But the question is, who is supposed to review and the SEA plan or the other kinds of document? Okay, the list of programs to be discontinued, is that the Academic Senate? Does it need to go to PGC? I mean, so those are questions that our existing process doesn't really say. These are different kinds of things that have to happen, but which shared governance body needs to weigh in on that, provide recommendations and so forth before it gets to the Board of Trustees? Well, we don't really have clearly delineated, approval path that aligns with our approach to shared governance. And so a lot of times there is inconsistencies in terms of, it was reviewed by this group, but it wasn't reviewed by that group, but it should have been. And we're not always in complete agreement on which body should be reviewing what kinds of plans or documents and so forth. So I think it could be a good tool for us to sort of ferret out some of those kinds of things so that we are very, very consistent in terms of our application or implementation of our shared governance.
No, thank you very much, Dr. Jones. Yes, there is a process for discontinuance process that goes through the DSAC group, and the person overseeing that area sends out to the colleges a process and a timeline. But again, we don't have that. We don't have that documented as readily and with different people on it. And Dr. Joker, I know you definitely want to have your ABC there soon so they could make sure they follow up on all of these things. But all of those things have to go on. And so there's a certain, there's a season for everything. and only some of the things should be on here because they are relevant to the individual committees, but they may not necessarily rise to come to PGC or PBC on the financial side. So I think that it's at every single committee's viewpoint as they put these things down for their regular year stuff that they do about what's the relevancy in terms of going to go into any of the other colleges and stuff. So any final comments, Dr. J, or anybody else?
Great work, you guys. I think we have a good plan for our goal setting has been established, and now we just need to prioritize which ones we're going to address first.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Jackson. And thank all of you who have been participating. One of the things that Dr. Jake constantly reminds me is that when you have a participatory governance process, it may be somewhat laborious at times and wonky at some times, as a way of being inclusive of people and having a very integrated process. And I think many of us try to tinker with it to make it a more easier flowing integrated planning process. So, but I do think that part of this is a process, and we want to try to make sure, whether it's the chancellor work groups or the actual governance committees, when they're talking on these various topics, that it's there for transparency, it's there for people to come and exercise their right to make public comments or any of the other processes. And so I guess in one way, I don't know necessarily if I support bureaucracy, but I do think it's important for us to have processes where people feel that they know where things are, they know who to go to or what group to go to, what governance group to go to, and to basically utilize us for those purposes. And obviously for our own purposes, it's for our planning purposes, as well as our ability to hear from the various constituencies. And so I'd like to thank everybody for participating in this summit that we had today. Any other comments, Brandy or anybody else?
Just one quick comment. And so I don't know, can you all see this calendar here? Yeah. I've heard from each committee, and I just want to make sure that we have the correct, well, I do need confirmation from DASC before I publish this. And again, I'll repeat, I know that the holistic or the safety committee, we're waiting on them to actually come together. So I'll leave that highlighted yellow, but I just want to make sure that DASC is correct. And you can feel free to email me what it should look like, and I'll take care of it on the back end.
Yeah, Dr. Droker, since I know they don't meet that often, but they need to meet sooner rather than later.
Well, we tried to get a meeting for the 21st, and it seems like everybody else has their meetings on Fridays. So that's the other part of this, is when you look at Brandy's calendar, we don't have the times on there, but people need to be able to go to these open meetings. And if they're occurring at the same time on Fridays, that's a problem. So we're going to be the first to try to do another day. So stay tuned.
And also there are meeting times starting at 9 o'clock. There's meeting times starting at 11 o'clock. I don't know if Friday afternoon is utilized all that much. And what we've tried to do, but unsuccessfully, of course, is who has the first Friday, who has the second Friday. PBC has the third Friday, PGC had the fourth Friday, but there was complaints that it's only a week difference. And anyhow, we are trying. So thank you very much. Let's see what is in chat. And since they have not been scheduled some days and times.
I was just adding to the chat, because they've not been scheduled and invites have not been connected. It's easy for the calendar to get impacted with other things. So for example, I'll just share on October 21st, Berkeley City College has some commitments with some of our community partners. So if there are going to be any meetings that are happening on that day, now some version of our folks might not be able to attend just because at the time that was scheduled, there was nothing on the calendar.
Right. No, I know.
So
And
that's all.
that's why ideally we could get this calendar done so people can be aware of all of this, because I know that people had to cancel today. I think Laney was supposed to do some strategic planning stuff, and that got canceled. So yes, I agree with you wholeheartedly, Dr. Garcia. So thank you very much. Anything else? Seeing none. I'd like
You
to.
do have a hand up.
Who?
2 hands up.
Oh, please. I don't see them.
Lowell and Christopher.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Let's get Lowell first, and then Christopher, please.
Yeah, I was just curious, since we have all the leaders here. I had read in the gyms that that enrollment was up, that the Free for Fall program was successful. Despite some of the cutbacks in FTEF. And I was wondering if there's any of the colleges or researchers doing any analysis on what component of that increase is due to the Free for Fall program. And then also, if since we decided on the FTEF allocation, I guess probably back in January, we have a lot more information now. And should we look at increasing FTEF for spring, if enrollment is up, increasing FTEF for spring so that we have the capacity to meet the increased demand? Or do we need that increased capacity to meet demand, just so that we're not leaving FTES on the table by keeping FTEF low based on data from what we knew back in January or so?
Good question. Anybody want to take that?
Everybody's already at happy hour, I guess.
I'm happy to make an attempt, Lowell. So I think that, so for example, I'll just use Berkeley City College data, because of course that's the data that I know. So for BCC, we know that our head count, so the numbers of students that are enrolling with us this fall, is already more than the total of fall 21. So right now we're tracking at about 340 or 50 students more. All right, so we have more head count. The FTES is also up, but not by as much. So, sticking with the pattern that we may have been attracting students, but they're still not taking very many units, right? So we still have the predominance of part-time. I think that the FTEF allocation, because that is what we were using previously, has already set a floor for what the budget available is. So right now, we do not have new dollars coming in, because the metrics that we're hitting on the student-centered funding formula will benefit us in future apportionment, but it doesn't come fast enough in real time. So to hold the position that, well, if we're somehow bringing in more students than we thought we were going to back in January, can we increase the number of sections that we might have? The answer is no, because we still have a baseline floor of funding assumptions that we're making. What it can do is make us think, as we think about next year, right? If we're able to keep the pattern going, that's when you get to influence it. But we don't get the return on investment, if you will. We don't get that until the next kind of set of apportionment.
And then the problem is that it's averaged of 3 years.
Yeah.
Which then makes it even more incremental.
Yeah. Oh, and I'm seeing Chris Weidenbach's comment. Yes. So true. It's not a ceiling. Maybe I'm not using the correct analogy. We've already got the baseline funding to roll with the FTEF that we're projecting for the spring. So I guess what I'm saying is that even if we were getting more students right now in huge numbers, we're not seeing those dollars and cents today necessarily, because it feeds into data for next apportionment cycle.
Yeah.
I mean, weighing in a second, and certainly just as far as the question of impact, Lowell, the one thing I will say, I know in my own kind of data dives that I've done, I've looked at our disproportionately impacted students by percentage of the entire student body. And our African-American students have gone up by about 3%, and our Latinx students by about 1% and 0.8. But what was shared this morning that I didn't even think to look at is that our number of African-American students compared to a year ago is up 33% at Laney.
So more
and Latinx students, it's up 22%. And then among our Asian students and Pacific Islanders, Islander students in each of those groups, it's 8% and 9% respectively. Smaller number, but even among our Native American students, we saw a 10% increase. So, you know, is it effective? I would say at least for our disproportionately impacted students, and having a student body that reflects our community, I would say that, you know, it's good stuff.
Yeah. Okay.
I just, if I may I also add, Dr. Bairami, acting president of College of Alameda, pointed out a couple of facts in the chat. We might also want to consider a couple of points. That even though the FTS is going up, the fill rate for the classes may not be going up or not. And so you may not, you know, the question about adding FTF, I mean, if you're adding FTF, but your fill rates are not going out, then you're looking at, you know, it's kind of a cost analysis. So.
Thank you. Yeah. So Chris, did you have any other question?
I think the question for this district right now is enrollment is up. A ton of people, according to the environmental scan that we saw reported this morning at Laney, and a lot of us have seen with our own eyes when we roll around Oakland, thousands of prospective students need us, or they're gonna get pushed.
I'm having a hard time following.
Chris.
And Oakland will not be Oakland anymore.
Okay, Chris.
Alameda won't be Alameda. Berkeley won't be Berkeley very much longer if we don't start serving these communities better. And we're not going to serve them by not offering classes.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Your questions was in chat, so your audio.
My questions were in the chat a long time ago.
Yeah, no, I know, and it wasn't responded to. I think Dr. Garcia's comment was probably the closest in response to you. The fact that the fall was better than last year's fall doesn't necessarily mean that there's going to be another allocation of monies coming to the spring with an allocation of more FTF because the budget that was allocated in terms of the FTF was done on a yearly basis and then given to the colleges, where they then doled it out between the fall, the spring, and the summer, fall, spring, and summer. And so that was probably what was answering or addressing what you put out there earlier. I don't know if there is any discussion at all anywhere, whether it's at the district or at the colleges, where they are trying to find additional FTF at all. And the mention that Dr. Bajrami and Maurice were talking about was not just the the number of head counts that's up or FTES that's up, but looking at the fill rates, and the fill rates go directly towards the whole productivity issue that constantly is up as well. What did Dr. Rosrami said? Demand is up, but still below. Yeah, obviously we're still way below. I mean, part of the issue is that we are hopefully turning around this situation, but no matter how much we're doing right now, we're not necessarily going to meet the expected goals, if you will, of what we were supposed to do at the different colleges. Anyhow, that's the response. Any other question? Sorry, Chris. The only thing that I could say to anyone is please talk with your college. I don't know if the colleges have any additional money to put forward on their FTF. All right, folks, thank you very much. Be safe and enjoy this weekend. I think other people have signed off and they have indicated that it's Indigenous Peoples Day weekend. So thank you very much. Goodbye.